I was leading a session on our relationship with money. I just was curious about where people were with this at this point. This was in 2016. We had 50 people in the room. We circled up and we went around the room just to say something about your relationship with money. And I realized every person in that room was in fear about money. From the 80-year-old who I know has millions of dollars to the 20-year-old who's like already $20,000 in debt. And it just, honestly, it infuriated me. Like, what kind of society requires that everybody participate in something that terrifies them? This feels so amiss to me.
People are not fully rational, and they make many choices that, if they reflected upon them, they would do differently. There's no question about that. The major tendency is people tend to frame things very narrowly. They take a narrow view of decision-making. They look at the problem at hand, and they deal with it as if it were the only problem. Very frequently, it's a better idea to look at problems as they will recur throughout your life, and then you look at the policy that you ought to adopt for a class of problems. Difficult to do would be a better thing. People frame things narrowly in the sense, for example, that they will save and borrow at the same time instead of somehow treating their whole portfolio of assets as one thing. If people were able to take a broader view, they would in general make better decisions. So that is certainly one of the weaknesses of human decision making.
I wonder just how many of those 50 people in that room were quietly sitting as current or former Jehovah's Witnesses. Now, if none of those people were current or former Jehovah's Witnesses, and they were raised in an environment, let's say it was a standard environment, home environment, and this is the fear they have with regard to money, their relationship with money, can you imagine the double whammy being raised as a Jehovah's Witness and their thoughts and philosophies on money? She also went on to ask, what kind of society requires that everybody participate in something that terrifies them? End quote. And I'll tell you what kind of society does that. The Watchtower Bible and Tract Society requires you to be in constant fear of living your life and a loathing for financial stability and success. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the JW Free Podcast. My name is James. I am your host. And yes, I did take a day off last week. I had to get the plumbing squared away and had to call in reinforcements, and we got it done nonetheless. And I know I had an interview scheduled for you guys last week, but I'm pushing it back a little bit because I'm still doing some verification on the products that we're looking to bring to you guys. So just be patient with me on that. But in the meantime, let's still move forward in the discussion about our relationship with money. If you recall, the gentleman who spoke immediately after after the lady spoke, he told you that people are not fully rational. They make many choices that if they reflected upon them, they would think differently. And this has two applications for what we're talking about today. The first application is your belief system, current Jehovah's Witnesses. If you were to really think about it, you would probably think differently. Is that not correct? And that is probably why you refuse to do so. But nonetheless, we're still here to talk about money, which is the second application. If you really sat down and started thinking about what you've been doing with your money, even if you don't make a lot, what have you been doing with it? And over this last year, doing all these lockdowns, you will find that although we had a lot of bad news in terms of, people's financial situations, there are also just as many good things happening in terms of people saving money, because we weren't going out spending on beer and whatever your thing was. Some people was eating out all the time, right? We weren't able to do those things. And so we had a chance to sit back and accumulate, a little bit of savings. Many people have. There's people all over the internet talking about how much money they saved, right? And so it gave people a chance to think about what they'd been spending their money on. And this is huge because once you get a chunk of money, it is now your responsibility to make sure it stays yours, to make sure you use that principle to grow your holdings. That is your only job once you have that money, is to protect it and grow it. That requires some thinking, some planning, and some investing, etc. But most importantly, it requires thinking, a strategy. He also said that people tend to frame things very narrowly. And this also has two applications. Your belief system is very narrow, flimsy, not even surface belief system, easily dismantled. Okay? And the same way, especially when you grew up the way we did, you have the same narrow understanding about money. And his solution was to think about things long term, is ultimately what he was saying. Think about long term as these problems would continue, as if they were to continue to happen. So now you have a broader view of your money. You have a broader view of your religion. And now, as he said, you can make better decisions. And in order to start walking down that path to, gaining streams of income, wealth, so on and so forth, there is an education process that has to happen. And in my estimation, for current or former Jehovah's Witnesses, and this doesn't apply to everybody. Some people have the natural aptitude to make money and, make things happen. So I'm not necessarily talking to those guys. I'm talking to the people who are, really affected by the governing body's stance on financial gain and wealth. There's probably going to be two educational processes that happens for you. The first one is educating yourself on your thoughts about it. That's why I've been asking you over the few weeks, what is your relationship with money? How are you thinking about it? So the first process you're going to have to do is educate yourself on how to remove what you've been taught about it from the governing body. Figure out how to improve your relationship with it. Because no matter where you start dealing with money, from investing to even gambling, right? Even if you're a casino, and you're playing whatever you're playing, what is the old saying? Scared money don't make money. So before you step into any casino, because it's all gambling, the casino is gambling, the actual casino is gambling, so is your, investment portfolio. They're gambling with that too, okay? Before you step in either of those two casinos, your mind has to be right. If you go into an investment with the thought of losing or a fear or whatever your situation is, it's probably, there's a good chance it may not end well. But for sure, when you go to a casino and you go in there and you didn't have a fight with your girl, or you just don't have or with your guy, and you just don't have your head in the right place, your money will leave your hands. Okay? That's the other reason they say a fool and his money quickly part ways. Not because he's a fool, he just didn't educate himself on what to do with money. There's a discipline that comes with money. Okay, a discipline that we did not receive on an individual basis, and let alone money. That's why before I go throwing somebody in here and saying, hey, you need to do this or take a look at this or do that, we need to figure out, how do we adjust how we think about money. Anytime I have ever, went to play Texas Hold'em in Vegas or wherever I was, and I didn't go in there with the right mindset, I lost every single time. Every single time. Okay? It's an energy that comes with your relationship with money. Every time I went in with a great attitude and just be patient. It'll come your way. And those kinds of thoughts and and a strategy to play at the table for that day, I've done great. Sometimes 5-6 days in a row, I had winning days. That's pretty tough to do in any gambling. But when you go in with the right mindset, and I'm not saying guys turn into gamblers, okay? That's not what I'm saying. Just giving you both worlds. Again, your 401k is also gambling. It's just a different form of it, different version of it. But every time I've went in there with the right attitude, the right mindset, I think the most I ever did was 5 days in a row, maybe 6, but I think it was 5 days in a row of all wins because I was on the right track. I had a strategy, a plan. This is what I'm going to do. There's an energy that leaves your body that is verifiable. Whatever your energy is, positive or negative, that is measurable. They have machines that can measure, 4 or 5 feet from your heart that measures the energy that's coming from you. That's why this is so important that we start readjusting. Before we even readjust, understand, what do I really feel about money? Ask yourself that. What do I really think about it? How do I feel about it? Because that energy goes right out into the universe, and however that law works, the law of attraction, whatever, that's what you're going to get. That's what you're going to get, okay? So before we have people saying, you need to do this or come sit down with me, let's figure out how we need to adjust, if at all, our thoughts about money. And before I continue, let me give you guys my disclaimer. I don't want to sound like I'm coming off like I am some type of financial guru, because I'm not. I am just giving you my journey as I'm just getting into it over the last couple of years on how to address, financial independence, wealth, financial gain, whatever word you have for it. I am just really starting my journey on it, so I'm giving it to you as I'm going. But I am looking at things from a long-term point of view. And this was difficult for me because, for us, growing up that way, that belief system distorts your concept of time. I couldn't imagine just a few years ago paying for a 30-year mortgage because I won't be here that long. A 15-year mortgage, I won't be here that long. That's how deep ingrained our upbringing is. I could not fathom that number. I couldn't fathom when I was 18 going to school for 4 years. That was light years to someone who's born in this religion. And now, I'll be 46 years old, year into this, year and some change, just getting to the point where I can start thinking about, okay, in the next 3 to 5 years, this should do this, or I intend for this to do this. And then once that happens, I can roll that over into this. You got what I'm saying? So just know that, you guys, I'm starting just as fresh as probably many of you are. So I'm just giving it to you as I go along. Now, I'm going to play a clip from someone I've actually used before on an earlier podcast. His name is Dr. Bruce Lipton. And what he does is he bridges science, the concepts of science, and bridges that gap to the human spirit, basically showing you that everything has some scientific value. There's a relationship between what's inside your body versus what's outside of your body and your mind, especially. So let me go ahead and cue it up for you guys, and I'll play it, then I'll come back and we'll chop it up. All right, here we go.
Hi, dear friends and cultural creatives. Welcome to this new format of my newsletter. Really not much of a typist. I use these 2 fingers. It takes a long time, but I found the mouth works a lot faster. So I thought, how about if I try this video newsletter and see if I can get some very interesting information to you at this very important time. As you know, I've been talking about the evolution, and the evolution is imminent. And you can feel it now in the world with the crises that we're facing, especially the debt crisis, which is manifesting all around the world at this very moment. Why is this relevant? Because there's a biological awareness, an important understanding for self-awareness and self-teaching that comes out of the world's financial crisis. Very simply this: money is the equivalent of energy, so you can buy energy with your cash. And the significance about that is if you're frugal and take care of your money and keep a balance, then you always have this energy in your bank account, energy in which you can live. However, obviously, if you waste this energy, then you actually interfere with your own survival. So you don't really want to go out and just throw away your money. And so basically, I really want to show you that